you can't just do that, you know, go viral on demand. That's not how that works. It's just not. It's not possible.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted people to understand that my session at NABJ was not about. My session at NABJ was not going to be. This is a how to go viral. That because I don't know how it went viral. It just happened. And people needed to understand something that was very clear. If it is in the Lord's plan for you to do something, you need to submit to that plan.
Y'all know I talk a lot about the importance of the National Association of Black Journalists. That organization has introduced me to so many great people who I call family. Well, today's guest is certainly my little brother. Not only were we both young men who grew up in the church, not only do we have a shared passion for media, but we're also diehard wrestling fans and we're drummers. Today's guest, David Schiele. David is a reporter at WBIR in Knoxville, Tennessee, and he comes on to talk about the time he went viral on Twitter for posting his reel. Got well over 2 million views. But he also talks about what made him fall in love with journalism, what it's like to move into essentially a land of the unknown as a sports reporter and having to learn the history. So, ladies and gentlemen, sit back. Here's my interview with David Schiele. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So, like I said, if there is a brother that I have on this earth that took me maybe 31 years to meet, he is on the line right now. The one, the only David Schiele. What's up, man?
What's going on, man? Nothing much over here, man.
I appreciate you coming on. I know you been very busy, especially down there in Tennessee doing your thing, making it happen, out inspiring the world. So I definitely appreciate you taking the time to get on the podcast.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you having me on, man, for real.
Yeah, so man, let's get right into it. What was it? What did you decide that you wanted to be a journalist?
That actually came pretty early in my career, man. I was 13 years old. I was playing football, and I was the backup of the backup of the backup of the Water Boys backup quarterback, man. I was not good, man. Like, I don't know why. I grew up trying to be the next Michael Vick, and when I actually got the chance to try and do that, because I had finally slimmed down from the 8th grade and whatnot, I wasn't good at it. So, but one thing I was good at was talking. And I kept talking, and eventually I found out through my aunt, actually. She was like, that's like a sports journalist. And I said, what is that? So I Googled it. And when I Google it, I get a picture of Chris Berman in the definition of it, which is basically someone who gets on TV and talks about sports. And I was like, what? Yeah, I'm doing this. And I pursued it relentlessly from that point, man.
So you said you're about 13 years old, 8th, 9th grade, right?
Yeah, 8th grade.
Okay, 8th grade. And then, so now you're going into high school. Unlike a lot of other students, you know exactly what you wanted to do. How did you, did you take a lot of English classes? Did you take a lot of writing classes? Like, how did you start working on your craft immediately?
I did take a journalism class in high school. But I took English comp in high school online. For me personally, man, I never liked English class. I loved my journalism classes, but I never liked English class because the type of writing they're two different things.
Mm-hmm.
They're just totally separate. So I try to stay away from the English classes as much as possible because I never really liked them.
Oh, wow. So did you do any? Did you cover your high school sports teams?
So yeah, sort of. I was with. So I went to Hamilton Southeastern High School. But locally it's known as HSE. So
Mm-hmm.
I was part of HSE TV. My junior and senior year of high school, and we had to kind of rotate about what we covered. So anytime the rotations went around and I got to be sports, I was over the moon happy. I just wanted reps. That's really it. In this business, you just need reps. Just take your reps. Do a rep, do a rep. And the more reps I got to take, the better. And when I got the chance to, I would film the football games. So I think my senior year, I filmed every home football game except one, which was the homecoming game. I didn't film that game. Can't remember the reason why, but I think I just wanted to be a student that day because it was like it's my last homecoming. I think I want to just enjoy this one. So that's what I did there. But a lot of fun doing that. I never really filmed the basketball games because actually for a little bit I was in the pep band because as you know I play the drums a little bit just like you do. So yeah, man. So yeah, it was cool, but I didn't cover. I really didn't start covering all the sports till college.
Okay. Now, how would you say your high school prepared you for college?
Man, my high school was harder than my college.
Oh, really?
Um, yeah, my GPA coming out of college was better than my GPA coming out of high school. I graduated high school with a 3.4.
Okay.
People were already like, oh man, that's really good. That's really good. A 3.4, that's good. I graduated college with a 4.0. And I thought, and in my entire high school experience, it was in college, it's going to be much more difficult. College is going to be hard. College is going to be hard. College is going to be, and I kept hearing that over and over and over and over and over again. And college never got hard. There were classes that required a little bit more effort, classes that required me to study a lot, classes that required me to, do a lot of independent studying outside of the homework. But they weren't hard.
Right.
So in that way, high school prepared me for college because it got me into the workflow of just, having all this coursework, and it was very difficult and having to seek help and everything. And, the classwork was pretty challenging, and it made college really easy.
Oh man, that's awesome. Now
Yeah.
you go to so you're at Georgia State University,
Yep.
and which shout out to JL and Bree who are also on the podcast. I have to say, I ain't gonna lie to you. I've heard of Georgia State, but I didn't know that they produce superstars until I met you three people.
Mm-hmm.
So shout out to them. And there you served as sports director, right?
Yeah. So,
No,
yeah. What was your question?
oh no, go ahead. Go right into it.
So when I came into the show, I was just a reporter. I was like, we were all volunteers. The only people that got paid were like the student station leaders because that's the biggest thing. When people ask, how'd you do it? How'd you do it? What class did you take? It wasn't even a class. It was all the way student-run station from the very top to the very bottom. Everybody was a student. So in no way, shape, or form did we necessarily have an instructor, teacher, or anything like that. We didn't have that. So everything we were doing was just off of pure hunger and a thirst for wanting to make it in this business. And I think the biggest thing that drove that class of people, that includes Jael and Bree and Jared and my boy Rashad, we were all just really hungry. We all really, really wanted it. And that second year, the guy who was in charge, Jamal Goss, who was, first of all, he was the creator of Primetime Sports. And he may not know it, but God used him because he is not a sports person. He doesn't watch sports. He's not into sports at all. But for some reason, the Lord put it on his heart to start a sports show at Georgia State, and he did. And you can see the fruit of that with, me and Bree and everybody else that came from that. So, I was the sports director for 2 years. And then my last semester at State, I was with ESPN Plus and Georgia State Athletics, and I was hosting the football games.
Okay. Now, can you talk about JL talked about the Georgia State, Georgia University? Is that the one? The rivalry, the big rivalry y'all have down there?
Georgia Southern, Georgia State.
Georgia Southern. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about like the first time you covered that game as a reporter?
Oh man. So the first time those two teams played in football, I had a credential to go, but I couldn't make it. So, and I'll set it up like this. Going into that season, it was a 2015 football season for Georgia State. They were coming off a year where they won, I think, one game. Or they were winless. It was something like that. So in the past two seasons, they had one victory. And they come into this year and they were 2-4. Or no, actually they were 2-6. Yeah, they were 2-6. We're like, well, season's kind of over. And then they had a 3-game winning streak. They just broke off 3 wins in a row. And they were 5-6 all of a sudden. And we're like, well, if Georgia State can somehow go into Georgia Southern and beat them, they would be bowl eligible for the first time in program history. And we're like, well, what are the chances of that happening? They go down there and beat Georgia Southern 34-7 in their crib. And at the time, I believe it was the worst home loss that football team had ever suffered. And they got beat down. And I remember watching the game, and I couldn't believe it. I just could not believe it. And you could feel the hatred already through the screen. And it translates to basketball. And it translates to basketball perfectly. And, a lot of rivalries don't just have, like North Carolina Duke, the way the basketball teams and the basketball fans don't like each other, it doesn't translate to football the same way. It just doesn't. When it comes to Indiana, Purdue, the way it translates from basketball to football, it's just there's a degree of separation there. It's a little bit different. Georgia Southern, Georgia State, there is no separation. The hatred and the beef, the on-site dislike is very strong from basketball to football, and it's perfect. So that basketball, the first basketball game that was at Georgia State, the mood was still there. Georgia State was still hype off the football victory, and we taunted Georgia Southern, and Georgia Southern was still seething over it. So it was a great atmosphere because of that, and it was a great game. Georgia State ended up winning the basketball game too, and those two. And I was just saying the other day, as a Falcons fan, I obviously don't like the Saints, but I think I dislike Georgia Southern more than I dislike the Saints. The rivalry is just that deep.
Wow.
Yeah, it is that deep.
Dang, man. So now we got to talk about it. You're in college. Well, it's right after you graduated, right? You went viral.
I went viral on November 5th, 2018.
Right.
And so, I know the exact date because obviously Twitter timestamps everything.
Right. And for those who do not know, which you should know by now, David went viral. He posted his reel on Twitter. He took a risk and he posted his reel out there. And it was retweeted and it had way over 1 million views. Am I correct?
Yep, it's in that 2.8 million views.
Right. 2.8 million views on Twitter. People saw his reel. And before we get into you going viral, tell the audience why it was important for you to post it on Twitter as opposed to just kind of DMing news directors here and there. Essentially, why was it important for you to really put yourself out there?
Well, for me, I graduated in December. And typically, when it comes to sports jobs, and this is what I was told by the news directors that I interviewed with during the summer, they like to have a full sports staff before football season starts. And that's in August. We're talking about high school football.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted a full sports staff before high school football started in mid to late August. And they wanted someone who already kind of knew what to do. They had to get someone comfortable with filming and with the way that the viewing area worked and the different schools and everything else. So on my resume, it says graduation 2018. So they assumed that I was graduating in May or had already graduated because some of the interviews were happening in June and in July. And then I had to tell them and say, I don't graduate until December. So then I was no longer a candidate for those jobs because of that. So I didn't know, but I had a feeling. I said, some station somewhere is going to have at least an opening to make, it may not be to replace somebody, but to add somebody to their team going into the new year, going into 2019. So I put my reel on Twitter because, for one, I know people have been doing that. I wasn't the first person to say, this is my profession, this is my field, and, you know, my future clients could be on your timeline. Just give me a retweet. That's all I'm asking for, is just a retweet, and, you know, I can have my future clients. So there was that aspect of it. And we're talking about people who are chefs, people who do hair, people who paint, you know, and tattoo artists and whatnot. And that's really where it stemmed from. And I said, well, why can't journalists do that? You know, why not just put your reel on Twitter and be like, hey, this is what I want, and maybe my future employer is on your timeline. So let me just get a retweet. And I didn't tag, and this is what I always tell people, because it was a very genuine thing. That happened genuinely and honestly through the favor of God. I did not tag anybody. You can look at the tweet. I did not tag anybody in that tweet.
Not a single soul.
I also did not hashtag anything in that tweet. Nothing was hashtagged. Nothing was tagged. Nothing. It was just words in a video. And I just said, your retweet would help me tremendously. That's all I said. That's all I said. And so people who retweeted that it was just a very genuine viral thing. Because I wasn't expecting, at the time, I only had like 1,000 followers. I wasn't expecting to go viral. I was expecting 100 retweets. I would make it and I was like, I'm going to make it my pin tweet. I'm going to pin it to my profile. So just in case someone does end up finding my page, my reel is at the top of my Twitter page. Well, God took it a step further and said, don't even worry about that. They're going to come straight to your DMs. They're not going to come to you. They won't have to fish out where your reel is. They're going to see it. And that's what happened. Everybody saw it. Yeah, that was a very, very, very crazy day. And there's nothing that is even comparable to it when it comes to how that day was.
Yeah, well, you know, I remember when you tweeted it, because we had just met that summer in New
Mhm.
Orleans. Well, leading up to New Orleans, and we obviously would see each other in person in New Orleans. So I immediately became a fan of yours. So when I saw the tweet, I said, "Oh yeah, definitely." I'm hitting the retweet button myself. But I was impressed that I had saw that it had been retweeted a lot of times. As somebody who produces a lot of video for Twitter, pretty much whether it's for work or for my podcast and stuff, I know that it's not easy to get 1,000 views, let alone millions. Um, so when I saw that, I was like, oh man. Then I came back to it, and then no, what happened? I kept seeing it on my timeline, and I think I was like, yo, oh man, this is amazing. Um, but now I remember I believe you wrote a blog about this, and you talked about how your aunt essentially was your media relations person.
Yeah, man. My aunt had so I gave my aunt access to my account,
Mm-hmm.
and I needed her to help me sift through all the DMs that I got. My
Okay.
DMs were flooded, and I mean flooded. Um, and the thing about it is, I wanted a job. That's why I tweeted it.
Mm-hmm.
Inspiring people, giving people, people were telling me, man, you know what? I gave up on journalism. I'm gonna try it again. You inspired me. Um, People saying, hey man, I think journalism is for me. I've been trying to pursue it. I just didn't have the courage to do it. I'm gonna go ahead and do it, dude. Some people just wanted to tell me, hey man, I really think you're gonna find a job. I think you're awesome, and I appreciate every single one of those people. I appreciate every single one of those people. But at the end of the day, those people weren't going to be the ones to hire me because
Mm-hmm.
they can't. And then eventually there's a couple DMs, couple of emails. Hey man, we saw your reel. Just want to know if you want to talk. Just want to know if you're cool with talking this year. And I needed to find all of those DMs. I needed to find all those emails. I needed to be able to seek and find and say that's someone I need to follow up with. That's someone I need to respond to right now. That's someone I need to get their number. I need to get their email. So then my aunt helped me with that. She created a document, like a worksheet, like an Excel spreadsheet, really. And it was like the name of that person, who they worked for, what their number was, and like a check mark if I had followed up with that person. And so we ended up doing it like that. And yeah, it was crazy. It was I mean I'm being serious. Like that's really what we had to do.
Mm-hmm.
Um yeah, that's just what we had to do, man.
Wow. So how did you was it overwhelming? Was it at a point where you had to just put your phone down and step away for a second?
My phone wasn't even working.
Oh wow.
Uh so I woke up. And I had 1,000 retweets, man. I went to bed with 700 that night. 700 retweets. And I said, wait a minute. I tweeted it at the library. I was at the Georgia State Library watching a soccer game and finishing some homework. Tweeted that video out at halftime. Watched the rest of the game. First couple retweets was like my dad and my best friend when I was 6. We met in children's church. So I was like, all right, sure. And then I see the retweets starting to climb up a little bit. And like I said, 700 when I went to bed, 1,000 when I woke up. I had to be at work 2 hours later. So in the 2 hours I was getting ready for work, it went from 1,000 to 3,000. I was at work for 4 hours. When I clocked out of work and my phone was down, I had 13,000 retweets. I had 10,000 retweets just in that 4 hour period. So then I'm trying to check Twitter on my phone to understand, how did this happen? Who retweeted my reel with so many followers that it went crazy like this?
Mm-hmm.
And my phone, Twitter crashed every single time. Twitter would not work on my phone. It was crashing. So I had to go home. I had to go to my dorm, sit at the desk, open my laptop, and get on Twitter for my computer. And for the rest, it was more entertaining than TV. I was watching Twitter. Literally, I was just on my notifications page, and every 30 seconds, it would say I had 30 plus new notifications, and I would click, and I would see a whole bunch of names pop up. And for 10 hours, man, from 2 p.m. to midnight, I just watched Twitter explode on my notifications. That was it. That's what happened.
Now, what did it mean to you when you saw that Good Morning America had reported on this?
Well, see, they told me that they were gonna.
Okay.
They told me they were gonna do something on it. They reached out, and I interviewed. So it was with this lady from ABC News. She said, I would like to interview you and just kind of understand your perspective on all this. You know, I'm from ABC News and da-da-da-da and everything. And there was another, like, she was like a freelancer. She wanted me to answer some questions. Another guy who had a blog. He said, hey, I want to do a 20 questions with David Schiele. Like, for me, I'm like, whoa, I'm getting all these media requests. Like, I just hit a buzzer beater or something.
Uh-huh.
And it was crazy, man. But they told me. What surprised me was when there was just an article out. It was like, this local news, like, this college sportscaster just went viral. And I was like, well, who wrote this? And they didn't quote me or anything. They just said, they didn't interview me. They were just like, look at this. This is cool.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was this show. I'm trying to remember. There was like this show that doesn't even exist anymore. And it was called like Top 30 or something. And it was part of their rundown. And they were like, this guy David just went viral, and he put his reel on Twitter, and it's going nuts. And so that was surprising me because people were covering it and not saying anything to me. That's when you know something is big, because a lot of times you don't have time to reach out to someone. But it's big, it's popping, it's what's on social, so they covered it. And that was crazy. What ended up being even crazier than Good Morning America was when my grandmother got a call from her friend saying, I saw your grandson on the Today Show. They did a segment based around him.
Wow.
And I said, what? Because the Today Show didn't tell me anything. And I looked it up. I found it. I found the segment. And they were like, yep, there it is. And it still lives. It's on YouTube. And they did a whole segment based around their first reels from college, because mine had gone viral. So it really changed the game. It changed everything. It changed my life. That time, and it was in the most positive way, very overwhelming. It was incredibly overwhelming.
Now, you last question about the reel in a situation. NABJ. You go there, you get an opportunity to present on this. I believe it was called Keeping It Real or something like that.
Yep.
And which I was mad that I couldn't get back in time because that was on my agenda to attend. And I remember you said, "Hey, you missed the Sunday sermon." But what did it mean to be at? Well, essentially, I don't even think you were asked. I just think you just looked on the program and saw your name. But
man,
nonetheless, what did it mean to sit amongst your peers to present on that panel?
it was great. And for me, it was an opportunity. To kind of let people know how that was not something I did on my own, man. That was really favor. And I think that's the most important thing that people need to understand is that that wasn't possible without the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just do that, go viral on demand. That's not how that works. it's just not. It's not possible.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted people to understand that my session at NABJ was not about. My session at NABJ was not going to be. This is a how to go viral. That because I don't know how I went viral. It just happened. And people needed to understand something that was very clear. If it is in the Lord's plan for you to do something, you need to submit to that plan. The Bible tells us a lot of things about what God plans to do when it comes to the future. The Lord, in fact, as Jesus was talking, he talks about worrying in the book of Matthew. How many of us can add an hour to our days by worrying? We can't, right?
Mm-hmm.
It talks about how the birds of the sky, they can't necessarily pray or sing praises to the Lord, but he still takes care of them. God still takes care of them. So why wouldn't he take care of us? So it talks about worry. Then it talks about how God has plans to prosper us, not harm us. And then the Bible talks about in Proverbs that many, and the scripture I quoted was in Proverbs. Many, I think it was Proverbs 19:21. And I said, Proverbs 19:21 says, many are the plans in the mind of a man, but it is the purpose of the Lord that will stand. And all that really means is whatever God's plan is for you is not meant to harm you, because that's not how he operates. And if that plan is not for you to go viral, you're looking for verification, and you're looking for fulfillment in the wrong places. Going viral on Twitter did not fulfill me. Going viral on Twitter did not verify who I am or who I thought I was as a journalist. I already knew I was good. I didn't post my reel to see if the world thought I was good. I knew I was good. I just needed someone to hire me, so I put it out there so someone could see it. That's what happened. But if you're looking for Twitter to give you that fulfillment and let you know that you're good, you're looking for the identity of you as a journalist from mortal people, from flawed people. You're looking in the wrong place. That's why I cannot give you a how-to on going viral, because I don't know how to go viral. That was just in God's plan, and that's what happened. Because there were people sitting in the audience and sitting on that panel who also went viral in their own way. Their reels also went viral, but they did not get hired from that reel. I got hired from my viral reel, but they did not. But what did happen was it put them in contact with somebody to help them get better. They received access to do more things. They were able to meet someone who became their mentor. They got to talk to that person. They received advice. They applied that advice, and now they have jobs.
Yep.
So that's really what the whole message was about. And that's what I wanted to spread to people. And I needed them to understand that looking for clout and that fame and all that, that's shallow. That's shallow. That's why I never fed into it. I never ever fed into it. I didn't even retweet my own tweet. And there were a lot of people who said something to me. I mean, there were so many comments like, dude, you're really good. Dude, you're this, you're that. You're going to be great. You're going to be the next Stuart Scott. You're going to be the next Stephen A. You're going to be, you should be hired at ESPN right now. I didn't retweet any of those things. I didn't retweet any of those things and put them on my timeline, because doing that makes it seem like, oh, look what this guy said. 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 And I want you to see it too. Look what everyone else is saying about me. That didn't matter to me. I appreciate it. I really do. Because, I mean, obviously, if the audience don't like you, they'll tell your news director that they don't like you.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll want you out of town. But it was about getting a job. And that was the whole focus. And that's why now I don't brag about it. I went viral. People brag about people who know me, sometimes like to brag about me, and then I'll share the message that I just did. I don't boast about it. You know, the word talks about boasting, so I don't do it.
Yeah. Man, you taking people to church. I love it.
Man.
That's one of the many reasons why we connect so well. Is first and foremost, we both Christian brothers, so brothers through Christ, and then everything else, the journalism that comes, and then what I'm about to get into now, the wrestling part. What was it
Yes,
like
sir.
how hard you being a wrestling fan? This is at a time, we have to admit, it's not necessarily cool to be one at all times. What I mean by that, how old are you again?
24.
24. So
Mhm.
24, that means you missed the attitude era to really
Yep. Mhm.
accept it. So
Mhm.
that's what I thought, and I just wanted to double check before I just said like 26 or something.
Okay. Okay.
In 98, 99, now I'm 33, right?
Okay.
As we record this. In 98, 99, 2000. When I say almost everybody that you ran into was a wrestling fan, it's not a joke.
Mm.
Whether it was you going to church, you had wrestling fans. Everybody watched wrestling. Everybody was talking about
Yeah.
it. You go in the store, you had TV Guide magazines. You had everything had Stone Cold or Goldberg's face on it. Then it was The Rock, And those are
Yeah.
some magical years. That's why my generation really can't let it go, to be honest with you. I mean, you look at the Young Bucks and Cody Rhodes, they try to act like, but they really can't let it go. Hence the remember when they did the invasion, quote unquote, when they showed up to Raw. Now,
Man.
yeah, so but at that time, like, it was cool because this was during the time when you had all kinds of crazy stuff on TV, like the Jackass culture. You had all that, and you had the Jerry Springer culture, and WWE, or at the time WWF and WCW, just fell right into it. Now we move forward. It's not necessarily cool to be a wrestling fan, but in our circle, we click. How is it that you've been able to convince your news directors to allow
Yeah.
you to include wrestling in your news packages?
Um. Kane is the mayor of Knox County,
Mm-hmm.
so the biggest thing here. Also, this is Knoxville, man. There's wrestling in Knoxville.
Okay.
These people they love football. I mean, think about this kind of stereotypical Southern sports fan, right? They love SEC football, real down in country and dirty, smash mouth football. They love NASCAR. They love professional wrestling. That's a package deal. That is a
Okay.
package deal. And that's why it's so cool when you look up and you're like, oh, snap, is that Kane? Yeah, he's the mayor of Knox County. Oh, my gosh. Like, whenever there's a local connection, I just make it.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, there's time. If it's kind of a slow news day, there's not a lot going on, and I need to fill time, I say, okay, what can I do that'll fill time? And I say, I wonder what Kane did on this day in professional wrestling history. And I remember looking it up, and I saw that Kane unmasked in June back in 2003.
Yep.
And I said, today's the anniversary. Today's the anniversary. So I said, I'm gonna throw back. I'm gonna throw it back. And I have the WWE Network, so it's not hard. It wasn't hard to find the episode. The episode of Raw was right there when he did it in front of RVD. Took the mask off in front of RVD,
Mm-hmm.
and I found that, played the natural sound from it, so you could hear the commentary from Jim Ross, and I let it play, and that was it. And it was a local connection, so I had a reason for it. There was a reason behind it. And then you look at Bianca Belair, a fast rising star coming out of NXT. she went to a high school around here in Knoxville, and then she went to the University of Tennessee. She was a track star over there.
Mm-hmm.
So there's another local connection. And if she ever won a belt, when she wins a championship, she will be the first woman alumna from Tennessee to win a championship, because Kevin Nash played on the Tennessee basketball team. A lot of people don't know that.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So Kevin Nash played college basketball out here, and of course he was a multi-time champion in all kind of facets. And
Yeah, and he was a part of Christian Athletics Association or something like that.
Right. So he's got a lot of connections. But he's not doing too much right now. Like, he's laying low. But
well, he's going into the Hall of Fame.
That's true. That is true. And for me, the biggest thing was, now they just announced that the Bella twins are going in, and I'm telling you, I just talked to Mary Glenn Jacobs the other day. Talked to him Tuesday. And I said, "Are you gonna be put in the Hall of Fame?" And he said, "They ain't said nothing to me." So I don't know when he's going in, but they got Edge in there. As soon as he announced his retirement, they put him in there. Batista going in. Now the Bella twins are going in. That's like, are we just going to disrespect Kane?
Well, I think they, and obviously we'll get back to journalism, but you knew me and David was going to talk some wrestling on here. I think they'll wait until he gets to a point where because this class kind of seems stacked now, so they kind of want to let him be more of I don't think he'll be a headliner, but he'll be close to it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And maybe he will be. I mean, Edge was a headliner, and so maybe he will.
And that was a big deal because he had just announced his retirement.
Yeah, and because that was my first WrestleMania, and Edge is one of my guys, which ironically he's back. But yeah. Now, first of all, before we, let's take a step back. When you found out you got the position at WBIR, Knoxville, Tennessee, can you explain the process of, just moving out there and getting acclimated with the community and the area?
Yeah, moving was pretty difficult, man, because I didn't do it alone necessarily. I definitely had help, but I still had God's favor. Ended up finding an apartment, but I could not afford the security deposit because I did not have enough credit history. So because of that, my security deposit was incredibly, incredibly high. And I had to stay at an extended stay hotel for the first few weeks that I lived here. So I was actually living in an extended stay hotel on my birthday. And eventually I was able to move in. So now I'm in a place now, and I like my apartment. It's very quiet, very calm. My dad gave me the family cat, so now my cat's here with me. And I've got an electric drum set in here, so I'm back playing the drums again. And yeah, it's great. And the community, I just left the diversity dinner for the community, and it's good to see that because you don't see that a lot in Knoxville. Knoxville doesn't necessarily give you those everyday interactions with people that look like you if you're a minority. So it was nice to have that. It was a good change of pace.
Now, once you talk about the community, I had Jay Jackson on here, and she was telling people that it was important. And, I like when I have guests that say the same thing because my target audience are people who are trying to figure out what they want to do in life and need some inspiration. So I like to share the success stories. And so especially that sometimes you got to hear it twice, or if you missed it the first time, you should hear it again. You talk about the importance of being a journalist, moving to a place where essentially you're not from, maybe have never been there, how important it is for you to jump out there and put yourself out there in the community.
Well, it's easier when you're in sports a little bit because you're always at the games. So talking to fans, going out there, introducing yourself to fans, asking fans about the game, talking to him about it, saying, all right, well, I'll be on such and such channel tonight, man. Hopefully you tune in. We'll break it down. And yeah, just kind of going like that. But it takes time. It just takes time, to be honest. And that's really it. I mean, I'm still getting acclimated, but now I'm at a point where people are starting to kind of recognize me, especially if I'm in a suit. If I'm in a suit, they recognize me. I've only been recognized one time in plain clothes. I've been here over a year, and a lady recognized me. I was in sweatpants and a pullover and a winter hat.
Mm-hmm.
And I was at Kroger about to go shopping, and I was getting my cart, and I come across this lady, and I said, "How are you?" She goes, "Good." She goes, "You do sports, right?" And I was like, "Whoa, you reckon?" I actually took a picture with her because I couldn't believe it. I was like, "You're the first person to recognize me ever." I said, "Let's get a picture." So we took one.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Now,
So I'm still getting used to it.
Now, how about like the sports history? Because obviously you're covering high school sports, you're covering
Yeah.
how long does it take you? How long did it take you to get like I guess like those rivalries to understand like the importance or understand like which teams locally have been historically good or which teams have been historically bad, the good schools versus the bad schools in athletics. How long did it take you that? And is there, I guess to say, a cheat code to understand those things?
Well, it takes a lot of research, and it helped that the sports director we had been at the station for 8 years.
Okay.
Yeah, he'd been there for 8 years, so he knew the rivalries. He knew all of that stuff. So he was very good. And I mean, there's a school here, Alcoa. I think they have 17 or 18 not national, but state championships, and they've won like the last 5 years in a row. They've been state champs 5 years straight. And it's like, you gotta be kidding me.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it is that. I mean, you kind of get just thrown into it. Get thrown into it.
Okay.
So you figure it out. Yeah, you figure it out.
Yeah. So what's been, the title of the show is called "Breaking Through the Glass Ceiling."
Mm-hmm.
Some people may say, "Oh, well, it was obviously it's when his reel went viral." But I gotta ask you, what is the moment where you broke through the glass ceiling? You felt like this is for me, and I got like obviously we always want to improve, but we do have to take time and say to actually, give ourselves a pat on the back and say, "You got this. You're good at this. This is what you're right. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing." When did that moment come for you?
Oh man, that's a good question. Broke through the glass ceiling. I think it was when I guess a little bit after I went viral. I think I went somewhere. Oh, you know what it was? I went to Orlando, and they had me be the keynote speaker at a conference for these kids. And it was a middle school and high school journalism conference for these middle schoolers and these high schoolers. And they had me be the keynote speaker. They flew me out to Orlando. They put me up in a nice hotel room and everything, and had me speak to these kids. And those kids were so dedicated, and I saw the hunger that I had when I was their age. I saw it. They had that same hunger. They had that same fire. And I remember after I talked to them, and I was, being kind of general with it, but they were so inspired, and they were like, "Man, you just inspired me so much." And, they said this was the best speech. I've been going to this conference since I was in the 8th grade, and now I'm a senior in high school. That was the best speech ever. You were the best speaker ever. You weren't boring, And they listened. That was the biggest thing. They listened to what I had to say and started applying it immediately. It didn't waste time. And that's when I knew. I said, yeah, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. They got me out here speaking to these kids. And that's the biggest thing. I'm giving back and lifting other people up while I'm on my way up. So that's when I knew.
Doesn't it make you feel great when they listen?
Yeah, great when they listen, man. I've given a lot of advice out to a lot of people. A lot of people heard me, but only a few of them listened.
Yeah, man. Well, man, David, before I let you go, what's the one thing that you feel that the people need to know listening to this show? What is the one thing, the biggest takeaway you could give them, the biggest nugget, something that they should be applying to their life?
No matter what business that you're in, you've got to understand that what God has for you is for you, and that His love for us is in its own way and it's very unique. You should not be comparing yourself to anybody, and know that your identity is in Christ, the way He sees you. Like the song says, He knows the depths of your heart and loves you the same. That's a real thing. So understand that you have to put your full trust in that and submit to it. Put your full trust in that. Submit to it, and do not be double-minded. So that's the one nugget, and that's regardless of what industry you're in.
Wow. Man, I really appreciate you coming on here. Like I said, you're definitely somebody I admire. I watch you, grow, and I'm blessed to have you as a brother, as a good friend. And man, keep up the good work, bro.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me.
No problem. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed my conversation with David. Coming up next week, I bring on your favorite mentor's mentor, the one and only Michael Lau. So be sure to tune in, subscribe to the podcast by simply going to Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, you name it, I'm there. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, do not let anybody put up a ceiling that you will not break through. Forever 824. Kobe! This podcast is brought to you by B. Waters Productions. It is produced and edited by myself, Brian H. Waters, with the music brought to you by Hypnosis. You can find Hypnosis on Instagram at hypno_beats.